Let's move on now as lawmakers are gearing up for another Senate vote aimed at ending the ongoing government shutdown. Nearly 2 weeks in, the effects of the halted funding are being felt across the country, but with both sides holding firm on that standoff, what it looks set to continue with the next vote scheduled for tomorrow. We've got senior congressional correspondent at Fox News, Chad Pergam, joining us now. Chad, good to see you. Chad,
Marina, good afternoon. Well, right now, there's no talks. No talks, nothing going on. That's amazing at this point that we're, at this stage in the government shutdown. That said, Republicans believe that this is an inflection point in the shutdown. They started to riff or, permanently fire some of these employees last week, and you have a lot of federal employees who aren't getting paychecks this week. Republicans seem to think that this will compel Democrats to cave. Now, earlier this afternoon, I talked to James Walkinshaw. He's the new Democratic representative from Northern Virginia. He represents about 55,000 federal workers in his district, and he said that over the weekend in Fairfax, he was talking to a plumber who works for the Department of War who had been deemed essential before, but this time was furloughed. And the plumber said, look, I don't care about the politics. I just want to get a deal. Now, you talked about the vote, another test vote coming up in the Senate tomorrow. Republicans, what they're going to do is block Democrats from taking a test vote on their own proposal and just compel the Senate to have a vote on the Republican proposal. Of course, that needs 60 yeas, and they will not get there yet again, Marina.
It seems as though the Speaker of the House today on Fox News, his sense of what's happening here, this is going to be even longer than the longest government shutdown, that 2018 to 2019 35-day shutdown. What do you make of his comments, and what are people saying on Capitol Hill after that?
Well, most people you talk to, including Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, that they don't think there's going to be any movement here until you get everybody back on Capitol Hill. Democrats are going to make a point. House Democrats are. They're going to come to Capitol Hill tomorrow and say, we're here, we're ready to work. And they will continue to kind of propound their message that health care premiums are spiking. Democrats believe that that message is resonating, and they said that's kind of the exchange for their votes here. If you address the health care stuff, we might be persuaded to vote to open the government here. Republicans, meantime, are kind of boomeranging that onto the Democrats, saying that that just shows how bad Obamacare is. I find it remarkable that they passed the initial version of Obamacare in November of 2009 in the House of Representatives, Marina, and that is what we are still talking about.
Wow.
But to end the shutdown, you probably have to have an event. You probably have to have something major happen, and that's why Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, is very concerned about air traffic. This morning on Fox Business, he was imploring air traffic controllers to work. He says he has about 100 air traffic controllers who are on the job and not getting paid, who call out sick each day, and that's an issue with the air traffic.
Yeah, and I know you've got great memory of these things, and that was one of the big issues on that last shutdown, air traffic, when we started to see some of these flights being grounded here. That big paycheck that we're expecting here for service members, that could also be something. When is that due? Because I understand it's soon, and any reaction to that ahead of it?
Right. Well, those federal checks were supposed to be cut and starting to be cut the past couple of days here. The pay period ended on Friday. And so the fact that the Trump administration and Pete Hegseth at the Department of War can go through and find some other money and pay them for this pay period, that's for, the military. Maybe Democrats, can say, all right, that's going to, get us back to work here, but probably not necessarily, because Republicans, if the military is being paid, it actually probably, helps them say, all right, military is being paid. We don't have that kind of as a cudgel with the Democrats. And so the Democrats will say, we're pushing for these federal workers. And this is where I talked to James Walkinshaw about the federal employees. I talked to Sarah Elfreth, the freshman Democrat from Maryland, last week, and she was talking about 40,000 federal workers in her district. And she said, she thought these rifts were unconstitutional and illegal during a government shutdown. Now, I don't know that there's a constituency for folks like that outside the Beltway. But, at some point, the general public, and just not in air travel, they're going to experience this, whether it deal with passports, whether it deals with, food safety. Those are all issues that are covered by the federal government.
All right, we'll see what comes ahead. Definitely something that I know you'll be watching. You can always catch a Chad program there on Fox News. We always appreciate it. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Marina.
Well, frustration on the Hill as the government shutdown stalemate continues into a third week. And today, House Speaker Mike Johnson warning this could become one of the longest shutdowns in American history, surpassing the 35-day closure back in late 2018. Johnson has been blaming Democrats, saying that they're the ones blocking pay for federal workers. The Democrats are still standing firm on better health care demands.
Right now, the House Republicans, I don't know what the Democrats are doing, but the House Republicans have been very busy. They're doing some of their best work in the district, helping their constituents navigate this crisis that's been created by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and unfortunately, they've made the decision to take a my way or the highway approach.
And right now, hundreds of thousands of furloughed federal employees are still working through the shutdown. This weekend, President Trump announced troops will still get paid by this week, tapping aside money that was otherwise set aside for research and development.
Meantime, with the Smithsonian museums and National Zoo temporarily closed, businesses in the area are beginning to feel the impact.
Homa Bash is live to explain right now. Hi, Homa.
Guys, good evening. Many told us they're still reeling from a challenging summer with the federal takeover and federal worker layoffs. Now with the museums and the zoo closed, it is just another hit.
It's only been a couple of days, but you could just see, like on a day like today, federal holiday, usually it would be packed inside here at the zoo, on the street, and there's nobody.
That is the owner of Baked by Yael. She's been directly across from the National Zoo for more than a decade. She tells me she's not going out of business, so she's hustling and finding creative ways to stay in business, making sure bills and staff get paid through this shutdown. We spoke to a number of restaurant owners and workers who said business has suffered, but didn't want to go on camera, telling me nothing they say will change anything. I also heard from tour bus companies who say student groups have already canceled their trips, while others have had to adjust itineraries around the shutdown because the trips were booked a year out. They can't be canceled without losing payment. Meanwhile, Destination DC wants visitors and residents to know, despite the closures, DC is open for business. There's still a lot to see and do here. And remember, tourism plays a key role in the district's economy, bringing in more than $11 billion last year through a record 27 million visitors.
To have this shutdown during our peak season clearly is a negative for us in terms of the economic impact associated with tourism and hospitality.
While the zoo is closed and the live cameras are offline, the animals are still being fed and cared for. As for the very popular Boo at the zoo, which is scheduled for this weekend, it is not clear yet if that will go on. As of now, there's no timeline for when the museums and the zoo will open. Hopefully, as soon as the government reopens, that will happen. I do want to mention, though, Baked by Yael and a lot of the other restaurants we spoke to say they are offering free food for furloughed federal workers, even though they themselves are struggling. Just kind of a hoping what goes around comes around thing. Guys.